Welcome back to the Crypto World channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is continuing to break to the downside. We are trading below 30,000 US dollars at the time of filming this video, and I will be discussing some very important points in this video to go over why Bitcoin has been bearish recently, and if this bearish price action can continue to the downside over the next few weeks, possibly over the next few months. Once again, I'll be covering all of that in this video and price targets to the downside that we need to be paying attention to. So make sure you are not missing out on this. Make sure you're watching to the end, especially for you Bitcoin holders out there. But yeah, before we jump into it, make sure to leave a like on the video down below if you're enjoying these videos. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so that you're not missing out on any of these future videos. But with that out of the way, let's get straight into what this video is about. So right here, we're on the Bitcoin US dollar chart on the 4-hour time frame. And obviously, we have seen this break to the downside. Obviously, we broke the $31,000 level just after I posted yesterday's video. I filmed yesterday's video right here, right before we actually broke 31,000. And I was basically saying in that video that yes, Bitcoin is still in a short-term downtrend, so that alone is enough of a reason to consider more downside price action, but also the fact that we were consolidating close to this important level just here. The more we spend time close to an important level like that, the more likely we are going to break that level. And once again, that was all information that I told you guys just yesterday before we broke that level. But as always, I always say that we need to see some sort of confirmation on the chart anytime we break an important level. And as you can see just here on the 4-hour time frame, as soon as we broke 31,000, we got a nice little spike in volume here. Now, when you're zooming out, that isn't really, a massive spike in volume, as you can see, but in the short term here, it is a decent little spike. It was decent enough to potentially consider that as a proper breakout then and there. But of course, we also saw a retest, as you can see here. I always mention that when it comes to confirmations, I mainly pay attention to the volume spikes and the retests. And obviously, we came back down below 31,000, came back up to 31,000, got rejected at that level, and that was the second confirmation telling us that we are due to come back down to immediately $30,000, which is where I was saying my next target was for Bitcoin if we start breaking below 31,000. And as of right now, we have obviously broken below 31,000, and we have seen a decent little spike in volume, but once again, no crazy spike in volume when you're actually zooming out just here. But so far, we have also seen another rejection along the $30,000 level to the downside. So I'm going to be completely honest here, this is not good for Bitcoin in the short term. Of course, it's not impossible for Bitcoin to just jump back up here and start gaining again in the short term. But all things considered, the fact that we are in a downtrend, the fact that we are trading below an important level just here, technically speaking, we are looking more bearish than bullish. And once again, I've been leaning a little bit more bearish here in the short term. Once again, in the short term, I've been leaning a little bit more bearish for a couple weeks now, really. Of course, we can have these smaller gains, these smaller breakouts during this massive trend just here. But when you're talking about the overall trend in the short term, talking about weeks from now, we have been in a downtrend on this 4-hour time frame for roughly around 3 weeks now. And when you're zooming out to the daily time frame, we are still in this downtrend that we've been in for pretty much around 3 months now. We have not confirmed any major uptrend just yet. And of course, there's going to be a time in the future where we will begin another uptrend. It's just not today. We are not confirming a new uptrend right now. So what does this mean for Bitcoin holders? Well, first of all, for the beginners out there, as I always mention in these videos, the best strategy for the beginners to follow is simply just to dollar cost average into Bitcoin and hold that for the longer term. Keep a long-term perspective. That is really important for the beginners out there, because one of the biggest mistakes that beginners make in these markets is they buy into Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin has a decent little pullback like what we've had recently, a lot of these new beginners into the market that bought at these high prices panic sell, because obviously at this stage they would be down on their investment if they're brand new to crypto, and this is really all they've experienced so far. All of these newer investors, this is all they've experienced, this bearish price action. But all of this here, this type of bearish price action, we've seen this time and time again throughout Bitcoin's entire history. This is absolutely nothing new for Bitcoin. So I want to make that clear as well. For the beginners out there, if you're just keeping a long-term perspective and you're continuing to dollar cost average into the market, especially at these much discounted prices, you're going to do well in the longer term. Once again, that is talking about the long term, as in 6 to 12 months, possibly over the next couple years. But once again, just in the immediate short term, as in over the next few days, possibly over the next few weeks, we could still be looking a little bit bearish here once again, or at the very least, somewhat range bound in around these areas just here. I don't actually expect, the major bull market to continue to the upside until at least a couple months from now. Now, another confirmation method that I will be using on this potential break to the downside just here is paying attention to the daily candle close. Now, right now, at the time of filming this video, once again, this daily candle is sitting below 30,000 US dollars. So if this actually closes this daily candle below 30,000, then that there can also act as a confirmation of us breaking below the 30K level, which in that case, it would actually be likely for Bitcoin to continue a little bit lower to the downside. And once again, I will mention my price targets to the downside in just a moment. But yeah, it's really important that we see, 1 to 2 daily candles well below this level just here, because if we don't, we can also end up with a situation like this, what we saw around a month ago now. As you can see, the Bitcoin price dipped down towards around 28.8K. That's right, we dipped below 29,000, lower than we are right now, and we still came back up immediately. Basically, in that one single day just there, we dipped back down and came back up towards around 32 to 33,000. So that's what happens when you do not wait for confirmation, when you do not wait for some sort of daily candle close or a retest of these levels once again. And by the way, a major fundamental reason why the Bitcoin price is still looking bearish is because of not only this chart just here, but also this chart and this chart just here. Taking a look at the second chart that I just flashed, this is the S&P 500 index, which is obviously showing us what the US stock market is doing. And as you can see, recently, once again, this is on the daily time frame, by the way, recently we have been experiencing some bearish price action for the US stock market here on the S&P 500. Now, this hasn't been, extremely bearish. Like, this pullback just recently has been around 3%, a bit over 3%, but keep in mind as well that crypto is by far more volatile in the stock market. So, a 3% pullback in the stock market could be like a 20% pullback in Bitcoin in terms of the significance that they have on the markets. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, we have pulled back into this line of support just here for the S&P 500, which is coming in at around 4,230 approximately. So if the S&P 500 can get a bounce just here and actually hold these levels, that, by the way, will be good for Bitcoin, good for the crypto market overall, because some people might not want to hear this, but Bitcoin and the overall crypto market is pretty correlated to the traditional financial markets, such as the stock market, for example. Now, it's important to mention that the correlation isn't a 100% correlation, meaning that Bitcoin does not experience the exact same moves as the stock market, but Bitcoin and the stock market become pretty highly correlated during any sort of extreme time in the market, when we're looking really bearish or really bullish. Once again, as we've been quite bearish here in the stock market recently, that has led to a decent pullback in Bitcoin. Going back and taking a look at March 2020, obviously that was one of the biggest stock market capitulations in recent history. And what happened at that moment in time for Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin also saw one of the biggest capitulations in Bitcoin's history at the same time as the stock market seeing a capitulation. And ever since the stock market bottomed out in around the middle of March last year, and we continued on this massive bull run for the stock market once again, Bitcoin was doing the exact same thing. Now this is the NASDAQ, which is still the US stock market. It's just taking a look at the tech stocks just here. And as you can see, we have also been bearish in the immediate short term here on the NASDAQ. But what's really interesting, at the time of filming this video, obviously we've come back down to actually retest this level and got a candle close above this level of previous resistance, now flipped into support. By the way, this entire pattern for the NASDAQ just here, this is an ascending triangle pattern, which technically speaking is a bullish pattern. It's more likely to break out to the upside than to the downside. And of course, we are now getting the major retest of this level to confirm the breakout to the upside. So if this continues to the upside in the stock market just here, once again, that is good for Bitcoin. And this chart just here, by the way, which is also looking bearish, this is actually the annual yields on the 10-year US Treasury bonds. So at the peak just here, these bonds were yielding roughly around 1.75% per year. And right now they're yielding roughly about 1.15% per year. So obviously they have taken quite a hit over the last few months. Once again, this is on the daily time frame. And what's really interesting is the moment that these started to flip bearish, that's exactly when the Bitcoin price started to top out and flip bearish. And once again, going back in March 2020, as you can see, these yields took a massive capitulation back in March 2020, just as the Bitcoin price had that massive capitulation. And then of course, as you can see, these yields bottomed out and then really started a nice uptrend here, as a lot of people were turning their heads away from bonds and looking at other investment opportunities. This right here, once again, was really correlated to what the stock market and what Bitcoin was doing during that same time period. And by the way, for the new viewers on the channel, basically when these yields are going to the downside, that means investors are buying bonds. That means there is a demand for bonds if the yields are going to the downside. And if the yields are going to the upside on these bonds, that means not many people are buying the bonds. And during this time period just here, because not many people are buying these bonds, they are speculating on other markets. They are looking at other investment opportunities like the stock market, like real estate, like crypto. That's why we've seen a massive massive boom in most markets over the past 1 year, 1.5 years approximately. But as you can see right now, over the past couple months, not just crypto, but also other markets out there as well have seen a bit of a pullback as these yields are pulling back because more investors are now seeking a so-called safe haven in these US bonds. But of course, if you're buying a 10-year treasury bond at just over 1% per year, it's not exactly a safe haven because you are still losing money considering the fact that the inflation rate of the US dollar is much higher than 1% per year. But yeah, basically, for as long as all of the investors out there are still buying up these bonds, and for as long as the stock market is looking bearish, that is not going to help Bitcoin. Believe it or not, that is simply what the data shows. That is simply what these charts show. I'm just sharing the facts with you all. Obviously, you cannot deny the correlation between this and Bitcoin. So while this is still continuing to plummet to the downside, I do actually expect Bitcoin to experience a little bit more bearish price action just in the short term once again. And for those of you that might not be convinced that this is really correlated to Bitcoin, let's go back a little bit further, take a look at this chart just here. As you can see, the last time that these bonds were raising to the upside just like this was during pretty much the second half of 2016 and throughout most of 2017. And if you're looking on the Bitcoin chart, what was happening during that same time period just there, the Bitcoin chart was in a massive bull run, one of the biggest bull runs in Bitcoin's history, while these bond yields were going to the upside because once again, not many people were buying bonds during that time period. And then the moment people started to buy these bonds again, the moment these yields started to top out and head back to the downside, this right here, this was 2018. And as most of you would probably know now, 2018 was one of Bitcoin's biggest bear markets. And then obviously that led into 2019. Of course, we did see, a short-term gain in 2019, which was a decent gain. For most of 2019 and 2020, we really didn't have anything special in the crypto market. It wasn't really until around September to October last year that we saw the massive gains kick in for Bitcoin. And once again, that was at this moment in time on these bonds. And talking about one of my major price targets to the downside, if we cannot get back above $30,000 soon, I would actually be targeting the golden pocket, which by the way, bringing out these Fibonacci levels, the golden pocket, well, first of all, the 61.8% Fibonacci level, the top of the golden pocket is coming in at roughly around 27,000 US dollars. And the bottom of the golden pocket, which is the 65% level, is coming in at roughly around 25,000 US dollars. So in around 25 to 27K, that little price range just there is where I will be targeting next for Bitcoin if we could not get back above $30,000. And once again, for you long-term holders out there, you long-term investors, that there would be an amazing buying opportunity. And I myself will be accumulating some Bitcoin down at those levels if we actually get there. So all in all, to summarize this video, obviously I've explained my price targets. I've explained what I'm thinking about the markets right now. And basically what you need to know is this bearish price action that we have experienced recently in the crypto markets hasn't been unique to the crypto markets. We've also seen it in the stock market and a major pullback in the yields on bonds. And if anything, this is actually a healthy pullback because the more we dump here in the short term, the more the price dumps to the downside, the bigger the next move will be to the upside. Once again, these moves are simply reactions to the moves that came before them. So if we have a major move to the upside, as we experienced over the past 1 year or so, once again, we expect a major move to the downside. But now that we are experiencing a major move to the downside, going over the next 6 to 12 months, I still expect a major move to the upside once again, but that is leaning into the mid to long term once again. In the short term, we are still in this downtrend, so don't be surprised if we see some lower price targets come into play. And by the way, I post these updates as soon as these things are happening in the market, so if you want to get these real-time updates and also this extra information, like for example, these Bitcoin whales closing their short positions right now, definitely check out my Twitter. The link to my Twitter is in the description down below where I post all of these extra updates throughout the day. But anyway, that's just about everything I have to say for this video. I hope you all enjoyed and I hope you got something valuable out of this video that can help you make some money in these crypto markets. And if you did, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like on the video down below. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so that you're not missing out on any of these future videos. And right now, we are potentially entering one of the biggest opportunities in Bitcoin since around September, October last year when Bitcoin was at around 10,000 US dollars. So there's really never been a better time to share these videos around with your friends and really stay active in these markets, because once again, when there's blood in the streets and the majority are turning their heads away from the crypto market, that is one of the biggest opportunities that you can be taking for yourself if you are serious about making a lot of money in the future. But anyway, that's really everything I have to say for this video. Once again, I really hope you enjoyed and I will see you all in the next video.